I'm sitting at my laptop, hovering over Canva, contemplating how I will adjust my resume for the job that I'm applying for. I currently have 6 different templates on rotation, and the amount of times I've edited them, reformatted them, and added different bullet points to prove my capabilities is astronomical. Between the bursts of motivation I have when I apply for yet another role I'm kind of overqualified for, there's a sense of dread that follows me. It says the same thing. You've gone down this road before. It always leads to the same place. But if not this, what is it? And the one I hate the most, you have to do this. That word has become stuck to me my entire professional career. This sense of having to, proving something, feeling worthy of a type of success that, while I know I can reach, also seems a little out of reach. In the same way I have exhausted the search options for the job board I constantly cling to, waiting for something to materialize that will magically be the perfect fit, I have waited for a path to define me in a way that will finally make me feel like a whole and real person. To cover up the parts of me that seem to stick out like a sore thumb, the very ones that hold the most potential, but for which I've carried the most shame for. While I've never done a bad job and have felt valuable in certain spaces, there always comes a moment when a certain stirring arises, and it tells me there has to be more. I've just never believed in it enough to see it through. When the energy dies off and the reality of feeling so uncomfortable and so unstable in that in-between chapter presents, I go back to the beginning again, or rather, repeat previous chapters. 2025 showed me that I have to choose differently. 2026 is proving to me that something has to die off in order for it to actually happen. And I think the first thing to go will be the shame of wondering if I'll ever just be like everyone else and just get on with things, of skirting around conversations and feeling this intense need to hide where I currently am. The sinking feeling that I'm not good enough to do what it is that I really would like to do, but somehow everybody else is. I've always seemed to be a woman in the in-between, and instead of proving myself wrong that I could indeed elevate beyond it, I've continued to feed into the loop. What I can do is stop editing the same document. Stop hovering around Canva and pretend like any of these applications that I spend hours on are actually getting opened. I could invest that time into myself, my ideas, my own selection criteria, but properly get behind it. Take that sense of conviction that I feed so eloquently into cover letters and start to speak the same words back to myself. Because even though that's perhaps a little riskier, I don't know how to do anything other than be who I am. And I've spent many, many years pretending like what I've been doing is okay enough, and it no longer is. So if you're in the in-between, I'm right there with you. What I can see so clearly is that we don't have to feel stuck there. We don't have to feel so ashamed of it either. We can start by trusting in the wholeness of our visions, of actually trusting in ourselves for once, that in order to grow and step into the potential we see so clearly, we have to actually take that first step and allow it to land, to traverse the in-between into somewhere that looks a lot like succeeding instead of just dreaming. If any of that resonated with you, then you are in the right place. If you haven't watched my channel before, my name is Maria. I am in my mid-30s, and as that piece has outlined, very much stuck in the in-between. For reference, I have wanted to post consistently on YouTube since 2015. I recall being in my apartment in Greece at the time, and it was in the middle of winter. And I wanted to film this confessional type video on what it was like to have an eating disorder. And granted, it was a little overly raw and emotional. I never posted it. And in fact, since that time, so what are we talking, like over 10 years, I have recorded so many videos that perpetually sit in my draft because I worry that no one is going to relate to this feeling of being in the in-between. I think to myself, wouldn't it be better if, Maria, you just get your shit a little bit more together and you can present this polished version of what a 30-something should look like and cater to an audience of young women who can look up to you as a mentor of sorts from a place of wholeness and success and completedness. But when I was sat at my laptop today crying over my Google document, I had this really pertinent feeling that actually the world doesn't need more polish, and it in fact needs people to speak from their experience in the process of it. I have shied away from, I guess, putting myself out there as fully as I could because I did feel this huge sense of shame attached to my journey and to my story. So I want to start by being candid, and instead of trying to gloss over things and paint a picture of what it is I feel like other people would assume my life looks like, or maybe what I would like other people to think my life looks like, I will just say that I currently find myself back in Australia, which is the country that I was born and raised, after living in Greece for the past 2 years. To be frank, this was a stopover visit. I was doing a holiday visit for Christmas like you usually do, and I've inadvertently become a little bit stuck here. And in case you might be wondering, like, why don't you just go back to Greece? The problem for me is I don't want to go back to Greece and feel that same sense of stuckness over there. I would much rather go to Greece, or maybe perhaps somewhere else, and feel as though I am working towards something concrete. As romantic as it genuinely seems, and at times it very much is, changing your environment isn't solely the answer to all of your life's problems. And when I sat down again at my laptop today and I started typing this little manifesto about the in-between woman up, I realized that what the missing ingredient within all of that has been in my experience is this feeling of purpose. I am not someone who can just do things for the sake of doing them. Arguably, actually, quite obviously, that is a huge privilege to be able to have the capacity to just want to pursue things from a sense of purpose. But the thing is, I have felt like I've been in survival mode for so much of my life, and that has made me feed into this loop of doing work that, whilst fills the gap, isn't conducive to actually what I'm really capable of. Doing things this way is quite soul-shattering after a while, I want to say. It feeds you, it sustains you to a certain point. But if you're like me, if you're someone who thinks quite deeply and romanticizes life to some extent and is creative and all these different things, as the multi-layered humans that we are, you do reach this culminative point where it seems like life is constantly showing you that there is in fact something more if you just go that little step further. But like I've experienced, there's been this huge sense of fear attached to what that looks like. I've never done it before. I've never traversed the other side, and I therefore have no concept of how to get there, what it looks like, or even if it's sustainable to me. The wiring of my nervous system has been so deeply rooted in just getting by that has sort of been the blueprint, I want to say, for all of my career. I've done a good job in my jobs. I would just want to point that out. And I've always loved the people that I've worked for and had a mutual respect with them. It's just that sinking feeling that I would get after a certain point, which would just be silently screaming at me on the inside, like, Maria, you're not giving yourself enough credit for what you could create out of your own ideas and out of your own thoughts and many dreams. I really believe that we're not here just to fill in the gaps of time in our lives. I think we are meant to fulfill what it is that purpose is to us. Granted, that can be so many different things, and it doesn't mean you have to be in front of a camera, talking to YouTube, being an influencer. It just means that you find work that fulfills you. And I have sadly never really had a job that I find fulfilling. What that does to someone who is quite, I think, deeply in tune with their inner world, it rattles you to the point where you realize you just don't want to keep surviving anymore and you actually want to get beyond it at some point. So yes, I wanted to make this. I wanted to start off this series with that piece because even though I would love to be making content that speaks to what is on the other side of it, I really felt like it was important to acknowledge that a lot of us are in this point in our lives and that there really is nothing to feel embarrassed about if you don't know your next steps, or if, like me, you do feel a little bit stuck. I want to combine what I'm studying, which is positive psychology, alongside things that I'm curious about, whether it's books that I'm reading, and also just infuse like a little bit of creativity within that. So that could be movies that I've seen and characters that I relate to. And that's going to be like the thread of where I see my YouTube channel going. I want to keep sharing through experiences, but I also want to show what's possible. In most basic sense, that's why I feel like I'm here. It's to share my experiences and to make people not feel so alone in what they've gone through. I felt very alone for a lot of my life, even though I do have wonderful friends. I felt like I don't know a single person that has had a similar trajectory to me. And I guess that is the biggest catalyst in me making this kind of content, because I want to speak to the in-between people and to just show you that it's okay to show up where you are and that we can, in fact, figure it all out together. So that is episode 1. I hope you're still listening. I hope you're still around. Let's see where this journey, let's see where our respective stories will take us. What I hope more than anything is that you just feel brave enough to turn the next page from the one that you've been endlessly reading. That probably is my own biggest incentive at the moment. Like, what could be if we just go a little bit further, if we just take that first step. Making this video is my little first step, and I'm going to put it forward to you. What is yours? Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for episode 2.